Hi, good afternoon. Of course, I'm Rickford Burke. I'm president of the Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy. Um, Today, I want to respond directly to the installed president of Guyana, who last night entered into a tirade, unhinged attack on the organization I lead, the Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy. He accused the Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy of attempting to destroy local Guyanese businesses in Brooklyn because he visited those businesses. And he said, we called for a boycott. We called on the people of Brooklyn to boycott those businesses. And even if we did, that's our right. But no such thing occurred. And I think it's unfortunate to see a president of a country going on an unhinged tirade based on misinformation, based on hearsay. It's actually embarrassing for the country. Before I respond substantively to his comments, I want to read the statement CGID issued yesterday in response to Ali going on a so-called walkabout of Brooklyn and visiting some businesses and persons who were in the vicinity of the businesses he visited, who attempted to ask questions to hold him accountable, were denied that opportunity. He talks about freedom and democracy. Well, why were those people who attempted to ask questions, they don't know what the questions were going to be, but they denied one such person the opportunity to ask a question, and that was Miss Bonita Montague, a Guyanese American community leader who's president of the United Bridge Builders Foundation. She was denied an opportunity to ask a question. Why? So it was on that basis that CGID issued the following statement. The Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy noted that the installed president of Guyana, Irgaan Ali, snuck into Brooklyn for a so-called walkabout without the permission of the State Department, as diplomatic norms required, and was facilitated by a few businesses and individuals. The few persons who, out of curiosity, ventured to the area where he was, reported to CGID that he and his facilitators were rude and condescending to them when they attempted to ask questions. The statement went on to say, the board of directors and members of CGID are disappointed that individuals in the diaspora who are aware of the racism, corruption, racial discrimination, extrajudicial killings, injustices, and atrocities which have been committed by the PPP and the Ali Jagdeh regime against Afro-Guyanese were stunningly silent when presented with an opportunity to hold Ali accountable. This is an egregious betrayal of Black people. Their sucking up to Ali and refusal to hold him accountable undermines the fight for justice and efforts to hold his regime and the PPP accountable for their racism, racial discrimination, and atrocities, which CGID and others in the diaspora stand in the line of fire fighting for every day. Lastly, the statement said, CGID will not support and will boycott anyone in the New York diaspora who fails to hold Ali Jagdeh apartheid regime accountable for the extrajudicial killings of over 1,400 young Black men, racism, racial discrimination, and injustices against Afro-Guyanese. That was the statement CGID issued. Nowhere in the statement, as alleged by Ali, did CGID call for a boycott of anybody's business. CGID mainly said that we will not support anyone, regardless of whether they have a business or not, who facilitates these people from the PPP government without holding them accountable. And that's our choice. That's what America is all about, right? That's what democracy is all about. First of all, let me say this. The Ali Jagdeh regime is an ethnocracy and a dictatorship. The Ali Jagdeh regime is an ethnocracy and a dictatorship. What's an ethnocracy? It's a government that governs only for its ethnic collective, people that look like themselves, and they use all the resources of the government. In this case, PPP East Indian members mainly benefit from the resources of Guyana. That's what a PPP ethnocracy is. Exactly what the government of Guyana is doing. They have committed human rights atrocities, abuses, racial discrimination, ethnic violence, violence against indigenous women in particular, and Black men, women, and even in the parliament, corruption, and extrajudicial killings. These facts are not in dispute. And it is a consequence of these atrocities that CGID has embarked on an advocacy for justice, for an end to racism and racial discrimination, and for the United States government to change its foreign policy with regard to Guyana, to hold the government accountable. Now, although CGID did not call for a boycott of any particular business, we said we, the members of CGID, will not support these businesses, and that's our right. And let me say this, the businesses, and one business in particular, the Hills, the proprietor, Doris Rodney, has a right to host anyone she wishes at her business. That's her right. That's her democratic right. And the reason I name her is because she has been responding to CGID's statement. CGID mentioned nothing about her in its statement. Absolutely nothing. Nothing about her. We did not name her. We did not name her business. But as the saying goes, who the cap fit draws the string. And she jumped on the statement, alleging and gossiping and conspiring and spreading rumors and slander about me and CGID in response to a statement that did not name her, made no references to her business. And like I said, that's her right. But it is our right as well to issue a statement. It is our right as well to withdraw from supporting any business we want. It's our money. And if we ask people, which we did not, ask people not to support our business, that's those people's right. We all participate in this marketplace of ideas and free exchange of views. Everyone has a right. President Ali said she has a right to support him. That's true. But CGID has a right not to support him. CGID has a right not to support any business or any individual who support him and his government because of what I outlined earlier: racism, extrajudicial killings, dictatorship, ethnocracy, racial discrimination, injustices. And we make no apology for the statement. In fact, we reiterate the statement. And today I can announce that several organizations have written to CGID endorsing our statement and asking for their names to be released to the public, indicating that they endorse the statement. One, Guyanese Organizations Against Racism, GORE. Two, Guyanese for Guyana's Development. Three, Guyana Action Committee. Four, the Bartica Diaspora United Association. Five, Freedom of Expression. Six, Anything Guyanese First Political Nation. And seven, the APNU AFC North America Support Group. These organizations have endorsed our statement and asked for the names to be associated with the statement. There's no secret that the People's Progressive Party, Barra Jagdeo, and Irfan Ali himself attack people who support the opposition, attack people who support opposition events, attack people who support CGID events. So who is the PPP? That we can't criticize people who support them. They marginalize, victimize, and destroy the businesses in Guyana of people who support the opposition, publicly or privately. You would recall that when CGID and Guyanese Diaspora Organizations of the United States hosted the Washington Conference, Barra Jagdeo himself threatened anyone who attended the conference and said he will deal with them because CGID is a criminal organization. Let's listen to Barra Jagdeo himself.
I saw Rickford Burke. It's the same kind of trend. Now, his organization hosting an activity in Washington to talk about discrimination in Guyana. Now, the first thing they should do is to catch him and lock him up, because he is used, that organization that he has should be registered under FARA. He's lobbying in the US, and it's illegal to lobby the way he's doing it unless you're registered as a foreign agent. So that's what they should do, and maybe someone needs to complain to the Justice Department and other places that he is doing that. He's collecting money for that purpose, and I think he is ripping people off. He creates this organization. He has to generate activities, and to have profile, and then he raises money to do this. So that's what he's been doing. And then we know that he's a criminal. He tried to extort businessmen for money here. So anybody who associates with him, they're associating with a criminal type, a criminal in Washington. And we will make this point, and I don't care which congressman or anybody else who wants to be part of a criminal network, because that is what he has. I don't care about that. Because at the end of the day, the people of this country matter, and particularly those who live here. They matter. So we will robustly take that on, and we'll point out all of this. In fact, he'll get some robust engagements there, and we'll embarrass those who will be part of these activities, because we point out there are links to a criminal who is...
That's Barjagdeo. You can remove him from this century and put him back in the 60s and the 50s in America, when the KKK made those same types of statements about black people. Listen to the words he's using. I'm a criminal, never been arrested in my life. I try to extort money by calling for justice for his supporters, who's an East Indian businessman who defrauded hundreds of Guyanese, many of whom are African Guyanese, when they went to his car dealership to purchase vehicles. We called for those monies to be paid back to them. Barrett Jagdeo called that extortion. Listen to him. He said only the people in Guyana matter, or particularly the people in Guyana, not the diaspora, the people in Guyana. And most importantly, he threatened, he said, anyone associated with us, he's going to go after them. I didn't hear anybody from the hills say anything about that. I didn't hear any business person in New York that support them say anything about that. He even had the effrontery to attack members of Congress. I didn't hear anybody say anything about that. I didn't hear Irfan Ali said, no, that's not our policy. We don't attack people because they associate with our political opponents. So who is Irfan Ali and the PPP and their supporters that we can't criticize them for the fact that they are associating with criminals? Barrett Jagdeo is one of the most hardened criminals in the Western Hemisphere. The Ali regime, they've committed murders, extrajudicial killings, political assassination. Sorry, the PPP governments, successive PPP governments. This particular government has committed a host of atrocities against Afro-Guyanese. So who are they that we can't criticize them? Who are they that we can tell our supporters and our members not to support just like them? They are setting the precedent. They are setting the example. You heard Barrett Jagdeo himself. They will go after anybody who attend our event. We are not going after anybody who attended their event. We issued a statement expressing our disappointment because they did not allow people to ask questions, to hold Ali accountable for the atrocities of his regime. Ali said they treated him with love. And it was out of love that he went to Brooklyn. Why this is the first time he's coming to Brooklyn since he's president, sneaking in like a thief in the night? Why didn't he have a public forum so that people could question him and ask him? Why did he come unannounced? Is it that he's scared of protests? And let me say this. I was going to ignore this event. But what triggered members of CGID is the attacks on the organization by the Minister of Information. The Minister of Information, Kwame McCoy, issued several posts on his Facebook site attacking me because I wasn't there, saying that I was in my basement playing with whatever, making sexual jokes. He seemed to have an obsession, Kwame McCoy, with strong black men and penises and dildos. I would advise the Prime Minister, in whose office he operates, to be very careful with him. But I digress. So it was the PPP supporters who triggered CGID members to issue that statement. I want to know if President Ali considers it love when all his members do is describe black people from the diaspora who don't support him as criminals, as living in basements. They think saying that black people like myself live in basements is demeaning to us. They don't understand that basements are a place of dwelling. I don't live in a basement. My house doesn't even have a basement. But it shows their racism, and they embrace it because Bharat Jagdev himself says it, that we black people live in basements. And all they can do is describe us in terms of being criminals. It is in line with the KKK perception of black people in America. It is in line with the Jim Crow racist perception of black people in America. And some of the very people who were escorting Ali around Brooklyn have been decrying the atrocities of his regime, the atrocities of the PPP regime, the former PPP regime. Why stay silent now? The people who are relatives, of the persons who are victims of Ali's and his regime's racism, extrajudicial killings, injustices, police brutality condoned by the government, they are the black people who support those businesses in Brooklyn that he visited. Afro-Guyanese support those businesses. Ali supporters don't come from Queens and go to those businesses. We are the ones that support those businesses. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But let us examine why CGID has this position. There's been too many atrocities against black people in Guyana. Let us face it. Immediately upon the PPP's ascension to government in 2020, they began a campaign of terror against Afro-Guyanese. They fired over 3,000 Afro-Guyanese from the public service. They charged only Afro-Guyanese members of parliament from the APNU AFC coalition. They charged only Afro-Guyanese police officers who were doing their job. They charged only Afro-Guyanese senior staff at GCOM. They charged only Afro-Guyanese public servants who were doing their jobs. They even charged Afro-Guyanese attorneys who were doing their jobs. Every single male talk show host or black talk show host, male, in Guyana has been arrested for speaking out against the government. Every single one, including Member of Parliament Sherrod Duncan. Every single person that the police has been directed to charge by the government under the cybercrime law has been black. And they were charged for speaking out against the PPP government. Every person that has been charged under the cybercrime law, under the PPP government, has been Afro-Guyanese. When the government came to power, they moved immediately, within days, to seize lands from Afro-Guyanese. Car Care, Vons. And they even wanted to seize an entire plantation at Kingley, West Coast Berbice, owned by Kojo McPherson, the well-known and renowned slave who bought that village. The Attorney General went up there and told his East Indian supporters to go and take the land. Why weren't those questions? Why didn't they allow those questions to be asked of President Ali? Why must CGID stay silent? Why must the diaspora stay silent in light of that assault on Afro-Guyanese? Guyana is 83,000 square miles in geography. Only 18% is occupied. Why they have to take away the lands from Black people? Why? Isn't that an atrocity? It is against the human rights of people. People have a right to land. So President Ali must explain why they're taking away these lands from Black people. Those are the types of atrocities we're talking about. So why we must not criticize people who demonstrate support for a regime that takes away lands from Black people. In addition to that, we have been calling for justice for the over 1,400 young Black men murdered by Barrett Jagdeo's death squad. The PPP party, the People's Progressive Party government, headed by Barrett Jagdeo, killed over 1,400 young Black men. There's never been an investigation. They did it with impunity, and Barrett Jagdeo to this day acts with arrogance whenever we call for justice for those Black lives. Our lives are expendable? Is that what the People's Progressive Party is communicating to the world? That these Black lives don't matter? The United Nations has now called for an investigation. So we are demanding an international investigation led by the United Nations or persons appointed by the United Nations to investigate these murders and who committed them, with a view to holding those responsible to account. We want justice. Now, Barrett Jagdeo has been delighting in himself, calling all of these people criminals. Just like he called Mark Benchcoff a criminal, and then he sent the police to arrest him and charge him with treason and directed them to lock him up in solitary confinement for 5 years and then loose him. They had no evidence. Why must Black people go through this in Guyana, our home? And you don't want us to talk about it? And then you don't want us to criticize people who support you or who facilitate you, but refuse people asking you the hard questions about these atrocities? That speaks to me of ethnic supremacy. That you think that you can murder, assassinate, and kill over 1,400 young people, young Black men, extrajudicially, call them criminals, and the world must accept that. Just like he's calling me a criminal. And while he's calling me a criminal, Barrett Jagdeo and members of the PPP, they have been plotting to have me killed, assassinated. The NYPD has the evidence. The FBI is investigating the evidence. I can say that unequivocally. No, I heard the owner of the hills saying, I can't go back to Guyana. I haven't gone back to Guyana because persons in the United States government believe that there's a plot to have me killed when I go to Guyana. And that's why the government has been saying, come to Guyana, send Burke to Guyana, because Barrett Jack Dave and his minions want to have me killed. So the owner of the hills is now endorsing that plot by telling me, oh, why don't you go to Guyana? It is ridiculous that you can stoop so low, because we criticize persons not being allowed to ask questions. And we did not even call her name, call her business, ask to boycott her business. It never happened. Other people probably did, but not CGID, not Rickford Burke. But they like to run with gossip and rumor. And it tells you what they have been harboring in their minds. And they now have an opportunity to explode. Now, President Ali called for elected officials to examine the activities of CGID, because we are advocating for justice for the marginalized and victimized people of Guyana. I welcome it. I welcome it. But let me tell him what the activities of CGID are, in addition to our advocacy in Guyana. When persons in Jamaica and Barbados were victimized, CGID was there. When the Haitians were victimized by the Bahamians and by the Jamaicans, CGID stood with them vocally. When the Haitians came here, CGID helped fund lawyers and organizations for them so that they could assimilate into the American society. When Guyanese and Caribbean American young people fall prey to the justice system in America, CGID is there. We provide them with legal assistance. We provide them with attorneys free of cost. We conduct immigration clinics all throughout the United States. We join with other organizations to have courts in the community where judges and prosecutors come into our community, come into a venue like a church, and persons with warrants for petty offenses come and have those warrants vacated so that they go about and live their lives and get jobs. That's the activities of CGID. When a Guyanese young man recently didn't have $10,000 to finish his master's in university, CGID was there. But we will continue to stand firm, in addition to the work that we do in the community and around the world. We will continue to stand firm in demanding justice in Guyana. We don't care who attack us. And we will continue to speak up against those who facilitate the oppressors of Afro-Guyanese in Guyana. The PPP government refused to give Black APNU AFC supporters cash grants. Some. They refused to give them flood relief grants. Did the people who entertained President Ali ask those questions? Ask why? Were anyone allowed to ask why some blacks weren't given cash grants? To ask why, was it politically motivated? At least allow them to ask. Because their families back in Guyana suffered. Afro-Guyanese women, children, and men were brutally attacked by the PPP government in Mocha, Arcadia. Several women activists called me crying for the brutality that was meted out to women and children in Mocha. Government agents backed up by police officers with guns tore down the homes of Black women. destroy their furnishings, destroy their utensils, destroyed beverages that one woman was selling in her store. They even destroyed their animals and buried them alive. Some of the animals were hit in the head with a bucket of a Hymac to kill them, to bury them. The PPP government ensured that they didn't only break down the homes of these Black women and men and children. They destroyed their lives. They made sure they destroyed their belongings. They could not repossess anything. Let's take a look at this video.
This was a scene at KNV Moko Arcade today as the Ministry of Housing, accompanied by members of the riot squad of the Guyana Police Force, moved to demolish the structures occupied by squatters who failed to accept the compensation offered by the government. The Housing Ministry said the land on which the persons are on form part of the construction of the Eccles to Great Diamond Highway. Shots were fired by the police and persons were arrested, while angry residents threw bricks, bottles, and flammable objects at the police. At one point, the excavator caught fire.
What did them do? Like, me want to talk no more, man. It does everything damaged. Them telling me for coming one by one. Them saying that we outward. In these hard times, when you can pay 6 million or 5 million or 2 million for these things they know. Then what's expensive? Nails expensive, board expensive, everything gone high. We bed broke up. Everything broke up. What I sleep? I need funny. Then the rain wet me up. If I take I the road, I'm a homeless girl now. Now I'm a homeless girl.
And this is totally wrong what the people doing. This is totally wrong. These people need to give we justice. 20-something years now we family live over here, boss. Actually 30 years now. Where we going?
The area was surrounded by the police and housing officials who were executing the exercise. They first started by removing the bridge and then this house and business place. The owner was standing her ground against the demolition when she was arrested and dragged through the mud by the police. For several minutes, she and the police wrestled until she decided to go. Moments later, her house came crashing down. The operator did not stop there. He destroyed all the beverages and other items the woman had for sale. Some were covered by the debris. By this time, some squatters started to remove their household, livestock, and other items. Opposition leader Orbie Norton arrived on the scene and tried to reason with the police and the housing officials.
Why can't they meet in a civilized way?
Things got heated as the exercise continued, with residents pelting the police who returned fire. Opposition MP Roysdale Ford, Coretta MacDonald and other MPs were on hand to see the destruction.
What we see happening here is transgression to the max, oppression to the max. And I'm saying people will have to stand up at some point for their rights because we cannot allow
that Chevron has millions of dollars. I want Banks DIH, I want Ansi McCall to know that Chevron has millions of dollars in our property. And if our property has been break today, well, see me and understand with me that I'm not responsible.
That's a Black woman. This government will not dare allow the police to do that to an Indian woman. And I make no apologies for saying that. And President Ali is talking about love. Where's the love for that woman? Where's the love for the people of Makkah? That is disrespect and contempt. That's what they think of black people. That's how they think we should be treated. That's how slave masters treated African Guyanese. And we must tolerate orphanality in our community without apologizing to this woman and her family and all those other women who they brutalized. How about the love for Isaiah and Joel Henry, who their own PPP supporters, ethnic supporters murdered brutally, killed them by inflicting over 47 chops on each one of their bodies. One of them back was severed. And they chop X's in their head as like the signal of voting, the voting sign. And when the people protested in their village on the West Coast, Babis, the Ali Jagdeh regime sent the police to shoot them, to shoot grieving family members and villagers. And then, because the family spoke out and got politicians involved, the police framed them. Framed the mother, arrested her, put her in jail. Framed the brother with murder. And the police harassed that family until both mothers died. Where's the love for the Henry family that Irfan Ali is talking about? Out of love, the people entertained him in Brooklyn. We want the same love for the Henry family shown by the government of Guyana. And how about the love for in Boston? The government sent police officers to kill him. They shot him in his bed, and then they tried to frame him as a criminal. Barry Jagdeh static. The Guyana police force and the government's Department of Information carried a statement saying that Orrin Boston was shot in a confrontation with the police. Not true. They broke into his home and shot him in his sleep. And it took a riot in his village on the Essequibo coast for the Police Complaints Authority and the police officer professional responsibility to investigate that matter properly. And it took them months. Public pressure forced them to charge the police officer with murder of Orrin Boston. And they only charged the Afro-Guyanese man. He took the blame. He will take the fall. And then we have Kevin Andrews. And by the way, where's the love for the Boston family? The police force never apologized for lying to the public. That's what this government condones. And how about the family of Kevin Andrews at Grove, where a police inspector, an Indian Guyanese police inspector, chased down Kevin Andrews and shot him in the back and lied that he was armed and he was shot in a confrontation with the police. The investigation showed Kevin Andrews had no gun. He was murdered, cold-blooded. Nothing came out of that. He is expendable. His life is expendable because he's Afro-Guyanese. Where's the love for his family? Did the police force apologize? And then let's go to Quindon Bacchus. The most egregious of all, they set Quindon Bacchus up, killed him over a dispute with a girl. Special branch killed him in a botched conspiracy. Then they tried to frame Sergeant Damian McLennan. And the Guyana police force issued 3 false statements. First, he was selling drugs. Next, he was selling guns. And they never apologized. It took a riot or a protest for the government under public pressure to ask Justice William Ramlal, head up the Police Complaints Authority to investigate the matter. And then he discovered was cold-blooded murder. Did the government of Guyana, did President Ali go and apologize to that family? No. They don't care. Because these people are Afro-Guyanese. They believe in East Indian ethnic supremacy. Where's the love for that family? Where's the love for this community? He only know about love because we criticized him coming to Brooklyn without giving people an opportunity to ask questions. That's hypocrisy. That's not love. And then we go to the Black organizations. This government has set out to destroy every Black organization in Guyana that criticizes it and exposes its racism and injustice. Some of them haven't even done them anything, but spoke out for justice. And the government is trying to destroy them. Take Ipadaji. The government took away their funding, tried to destroy them, instructed the registrar's office to remove them as an organization. This is a Black organization. They're fighting with Ipadaji, they're fighting with CGID, they took away the funding for ACTA. Why this government has a problem with Black organizations? Black people don't have a voice? Why wasn't Bonita Montague allowed to ask her question? Maybe that's the question she wanted to ask. Where's the love for those Black organizations, Irfan Ali? They took away the funding for ACTA, but every year they go there for a picture up with Black people. This government, Ali and Jagdeo, have refused to meet with Black organizations, but they want to come to the diaspora to meet with Black people. Start at home. Meet with the Black organizations, hear what's their agenda, hear how they want to be empowered. Don't come to the diaspora for photo op. And the people facilitating them, did you ask the people who are facilitating Ali, did you ask him why he's defunding all the Black organizations that criticize their racism? That's a legitimate question. Why we can't criticize you for not doing that, but for bringing him in our community to insult us, for them to show that we can do anything to your people in Guyana and come into your community with arrogance and pomposity. This is America. We speak about race. We're not afraid to confront race. Don't call us racist because we criticize your racism. And I challenge President Ali, I challenge him right now to produce one sentence or comment from us at CGID that is racist. What they have been doing is inculcating into their people that criticism of East Indian is racist. That's called ethnic supremacy. That's what they practiced in America in the 60s. That's Jim Crow racism, and that's what the PPP is practicing in Guyana today, and we are not afraid of it. We will confront it, and we are determined to defeat it. How about all the contracts that went to East Indian supporters? 4% went to Blacks. And those 4% are small contracts to clean drains and trenches and roads. Back to the days of slavery. But they can give critics a contract. And now the procurement commission is saying the man was not qualified for the contract, but he got a billion contract, almost a $900 million contract, almost $1 billion contract. Cronyism because he's friends with Barjack Dale. Now we see he doesn't even have equipment, but he got a contract. Did not qualify, but he got a contract for $1 billion. But black contractors who qualified can't get contracts. How about the love, President Ali, for the black contractors who can't survive in Guyana because they're starved for contracts? Because all of them are going to either friends, relatives, and supporters of the PPP. Did anybody who facilitated President Ali in Brooklyn allow anyone to ask why black contractors are not getting contracts? Where's the love for those black people? And we must not criticize that. CGID will not ever sit back and allow people to abuse our community, allow people to come into our community and express contempt and be condescending and abuse us when we try to get answers and hold a dictatorial regime accountable. And let me say this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with protests. There's absolutely nothing wrong with applying economic pressure to force a regime to amend its ways and abandon discrimination and dictatorial tendencies. It has happened all across the world. The United States has banned businesses, American businesses, from doing business in Russia, in Venezuela, in Belarus, in all these countries. Persons who associated with apartheid South Africa were banned. People protested their business. Right now, Israelis are campaigning against businesses and schools that support the Palestinian government. So who are we as Guyanese, as Afro-Guyanese, to stand up for our rights and stand up for the rights and freedoms of our families back in Guyana? Who are we? President Ali, tell us, are we less of a people? Are we less of a people? Our lives have no value, that we cannot protest the fact that people are accommodating you here while black people are killed in Guyana with impunity? No one has ever expressed an apology for the brutal murder of Cumby Ring and Ronald Waddle and 14 other young black men that were brutally murdered by PPP death squads. In some countries, what the hell would it break loose? But there remains a level of tranquility in Guyana, in spite of the brutal murders. We have not forgotten. We would never forget. And we will never stop demanding accountability for those people who were murdered. Would anybody in the PPP feel the human dignity of those people, if not the victims, their families, to apologize? Can President Ali express the same love he claims that the people in Brooklyn showed him, that hurt him so much because they're criticized? I am hurting. CGID is hurting. The diaspora is hurting because racists in the PPP government formed death squads that killed over 1,400 people. No accountability. And we must stay quiet. And the people who are facilitated Ali know that they should hold him account because they talk about it outside of his presence. Again, I ask, Mr. Ali, what about the love for the victims of extrajudicial killings? The PPP has never apologized. So don't come up in Brooklyn and go and make speeches on social media about people giving you love and we are hating on them because they give you love. We don't care who give you love. We care about the atrocities that have been meted out to Black people and Guyanese of different races. What about the Amerindian people who have been abused by people in your government, including being raped? And nothing came out of it. How about the Black women, Katiyus and the others who have been abused in the parliament, abused by Barra Jagdeo? The PPP demonstrate contempt for professional Black women. Tapita Sarabo, who was assaulted in the parliament by a male from the PPP. Did President Ali feel love and hurt in his heart to express some sort of remorse and sympathy with that woman? How about Nigel Damlal in the parliament telling a female member of parliament to go and get a dildo? The PPP is an abusive party. I have never seen anyone in the PPP reprimanded outside of I saw Damlal resigned because of public pressure. We're not going to accept the abuse in the diaspora. And like I said, the reason why CGID got activated on this is because of the nasty, condescending posts by the Minister of Information, President Ali's Minister of Information. And by the way, President Ali, do you make the same speeches and Facebook Lives to condemn your supporters calling Black people hungry belly dogs and saying that we poor and we live in basements? Have you ever condemned that? How about the love for the people who feel hurt by those nasty words? And by the way, Mr. Ali, on your Facebook page that was investigated by US law enforcement is a death threat against me for persons calling for my head to be cut off. And by the way, I'm the only Black person that you guys target by sending police officers to my house with guns and have police officers and PPP unsavory characters following me and others in Brooklyn and engaging in conspiracies to have us killed. You expect us to be nice when PPP operatives are roaming the street plotting to kill us in America? Maybe that's a question Bonita Montague wanted to ask, but she was not allowed. And that's what we're criticizing. And then I heard Mr. Ali saying, the elected officials. In Brooklyn must examine what CGID does, because CGID is divisive. CGID is not divisive. CGID is an American advocacy group, and that's what we do. We advocate for human rights, for democratic rights, for civil liberties. And so we're proud for our elected officials to examine our activities, because some of our elected officials have been there. Some of the people who are now in leadership was with CGID when Mark Benchcott was in prison fighting for us, including Yvette Clark, Senator Parker, several other, Una Clark. Chris Banks, now city council member, was with us at every march, and he's Trinidadian. On every march, the elected officials know exactly what CGID does. We've honored 4 prime ministers. And as a result of the work of CGID, Trinidad and Tobago established better diplomatic relations with the United States government under the George Bush administration because we honored him. And then he was sent for a meeting at the White House. And let me say this, because I heard the owner of the Hills said that I don't do anything for the Guyanese people. And that's a joke. All I would say is that there's no Guyanese in the diaspora that does more for Guyana and the Guyanese diaspora than us at CGID. What we in CGID would like to see is our elected officials in America scrutinizing the activities of the PPP regime. We want to see a fact-finding mission to Guyana to talk to all of the groups and to see for themselves what we are talking about and listen to the people, listen to ACDA, listen to Ipadiji, listen to the people from Mocha and Hillfoot and Linden who are subject to abuse and Kingley. More than that, we want CARICOM. I am calling on the CARICOM Secretary General to invite the CARICOM leaders to mount a fact-finding mission in Guyana to find out the plight of Afro-Guyanese, since the president is denying that there is subjugation and racism in Guyana. I am calling on Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, join with other CARICOM leaders and go to Guyana and find out the plight of Black people. I'm calling on Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados. Join your CARICOM colleagues and go talk to the people in the villages and in the organizations in Guyana and find out the truth about the plight of Black people. I'm calling on Prime Minister Andrew Holness of Jamaica to do the same. Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit of Dominica to do the same. Prime Minister Gadsden Brown of Antigua, and all the other CARICOM prime ministers. And I call on the government of Guyana, if you have nothing to hide, invite CARICOM heads to come on a mission, not to come to the Pegasus and then fly out the next day, but to go to every region. Talk to the regional chairman of Region 4, and he will tell the CARICOM heads that his region is the largest populated region in Guyana, and his budget, his allocation from the central government is smaller than Region 6, where the PPP supporters live. All the PPP regions receive a larger allocation than the others, than governed by the AP, and you're at the regional level. Isn't that discrimination? So again, I reiterate, we call on CARICOM to look at the racial discrimination happening in Guyana and mount a fact-finding mission and bring the parties together, bring the races together, because the PPP can't do it. The PPP does not believe in equality. And President Ali can jump up and down he wants to talk about one Guyana. His party doesn't believe in oneness. His party doesn't believe in equal rights and justice for Black people. At least they don't demonstrate it. So I'm happy that he's paying attention to the work of CGID. I am proud of the work of CGID. And CGID will stand up and challenge anyone that wants to challenge us and our work and our advocacy. We're not going to allow anybody to lecture us. We're not going to allow anybody to tarnish our image. We're not going to allow anybody to intimidate us. And the Guyana government can go to their lobbyists and go to whatever congressman they want. We are not puppets of any elected official in America. We are not scared of our elected officials. We talk with our elected officials. And the government of Guyana can't drive a wedge between us and our elected officials. Now, instead of President Ali confronting the reality and dealing with the issue that we are talking about, the issues we're talking about, meet with the Guyanese, African Guyanese community, meet with Black leaders, try to forge some sort of working relationship. No, everything is a fight. Everything is a bullyism. Ask anybody in the PPP if they, since they came to power, if they met with Afro-Guyanese leaders. They're disrespectful to us. And then they want to come into our community where family members are of the victims of racism, racial segregation, injustice, are suffering and hurting because of what is happening to the family in Guyana, and people facilitating them here without allowing those same family members to ask questions, to hold them accountable. And you're upset because we criticize that. We will continue to criticize you. Why don't people from the hills ask Mark Jagdale why he called for a tax on members of Congress attending the Washington conference? Why did he call for a tax against anybody associating with CGID? Why are you silent? But we mustn't criticize people associating with the PP. We'll continue to do it. We will continue to do it. And while I would like to see unity in the diaspora and unity in the Caribbean community and unity among us as Afro-Guyanese, we will stand and speak truth to power every time. Because that's what matters, the interests of the people, not personal interests. I'm not interested in a piece of land in Guyana. I'm not interested in any perks from our finale. I'm not interested in talking name to win favor with the PPP. I'm interested in solving the plight for our people. I'm interested in equitable governance. I'm interested in equitable growth. I am interested in equal rights and justice. I am interested in equality for Afro-Guyanese. I want to see Afro-Guyanese business owners treated equally by the PPP government. Right now, they're not. So why the PPP must mistreat people in Guyana and businesses in Guyana that associate with CGID, that associate with the political opposition. But when they come here and people facilitate them and we try to hold them accountable and they deny that opportunity, why mustn't we criticize them? Who the hell is the PPP? So CGID, as I close, will continue to fight for justice. We will continue to fight against defunding Black organization. We will continue to fight for justice for the Henry Boys, Ronald Waddle, Courtney Comewing, and the 1,400 Afro-Guyanese young men that were brutally murdered by death squads formed by the PPP. We will continue to fight ethnic cleansing by the PPP. We will continue to fight ethnic domination and ethnic supremacy. Guyana belongs to all of us. We will fight for equal benefits from the oil resources. We will fight for a human dignity to be respected. We will fight for justice for Quindon Backers, Kevin Andrews, Orrin Boston, all the others killed as a result of police brutality, a runaway police force that this government incentivized them to attack people that don't support them. There must be an end to racism in Guyana. We don't support Black racism, East Indian racism, Amerindian racism, any race that is prejudiced against each other. We don't support it and we will speak out against it. And I ask Guyanese to join us to speak out against it. Speaking out against racism is not racist. And we will continue to engage our elected officials. And we will continue to speak out against anybody who facilitate the oppressors who are subjugating our people in Guyana without holding them accountable. I stand by CGID's statement. Don't come into our community and ask for photo ops and then leave. Don't come into our community and insult people. Even the owner of the hills was complaining how she was insulted by Ali in Queens last year, the year before. I don't care how he's viewed by anybody else. All we want is accountability. We don't want our community to be used as political props for racists and oppressors of Black people. And so we make no apology, none, for criticizing Ali's facilitators who came to Brooklyn and denied people the right to ask questions, to hold him accountable for racism, for extrajudicial killings, for racial discrimination. It will continue unless we have accountability. And all of our role, all of our responsibility is to ensure there's justice for any one race that is discriminated against. Anybody, anyone that faces discrimination, anybody that practices racism should be held to account. And again, the Ali Jagdeh regime is a racist dictatorship and an ethnocracy. And we must continue to hold them to account and not allow them to come into our community for photo ops and use us as political props for their political campaign. Thank you for listening.